Tom, we'll talk us a wee bit about your journey at Grassroots that ultimately led you getting signed by Coventry.
Started at Peebles, Andy, obviously Borders boy, just a local club really, and I think I was a wee bit painful to watch for my mum, and my dad used to take me along, and obviously never used to stand out, struggled, not so much struggle, just a beginner obviously, and then I think my dad always laughs when he used to say to my mum, you need to go and watch him now, like kind of 6-7 months down the line, he obviously had started to flourish a wee bit and started to hold my own, and that took me to Hutchie Vale, because they were more of like a selective type Grassroots team back in the day that were more aligned to like what a pro academy would look like just now. So then I had to have that commitment to obviously travelling through Edinburgh, which was like an hour's drive for mum and dad, which was a big commitment, and that obviously then coincided with eventually opening the door to sign for Coventry when I was only 15.
So what was the difference then? You said you struggled for a period, and then your dad's obviously saying, look at him now. What was that? Was that just hard work? Was that just kind of...
I suppose practice really. I think I vaguely remember when I first started at Grassroots, I was really small, and probably the kids were all kind of 2-3 years older than me. It was more of a, rather than like under 9s or 10s, it was more like the kind of 6-7 year olds would maybe join in with the 9 and 10 year olds, if you know what I mean. And maybe we never had a team to start with, so there was a variety of different ages and obviously different sizes, and me being quite a small lad, quite wiry and nippy without having the physicality, I probably just got swamped up a wee bit.
Yeah.
But obviously my dad played a wee bit, obviously when he was younger, so I always think of having a ball at my feet, practicing, being up the park, usual, when you go and have a muck about with your dad, you're constantly getting balls thrown at you, constantly controlling them. And I suppose maybe a good father figure, it kind of helped me learn the basics really, and that took me to eventually shine in. I'm saying shine in, that maybe feels a bit big-headed. Eventually doing well enough to obviously get noticed, to have an opportunity then playing in the town.
Yeah. So was that Hutchie Vale straight to Coventry?
How does that even come about at that line?
Aye. So back in the day it was, you know, when you sometimes get like a pro academy team might have like an affiliation with like a Grassroots team, or that's how it used to work back in the day. So like Hutchie went through a wee spell where Hibs were kind of aligned to them, but we actually went through a spell at Hutchie Vale, for people that obviously stay in Glasgow and maybe not know the club.
They've got a brilliant reputation.
Brilliant reputation, aye, but they're traditionally black and yellow colours. And then we went through a spell, didn't quote me on the age, but maybe 13 or 14, where I don't know if you can remember the old-fashioned Coventry strips that obviously sky blue,
yeah.
But they used to have Subaru across the front as a first team Premier League club obviously at the time. So obviously because the sponsor was taken off, it used to be like the Hutchie Vale badge on a Coventry strip. So that then obviously gave whichever powers to be kind of negotiated the collaboration, would give them first dibs on the Hutchie players. So that's obviously then opened the door for some of us, and I was one of the lucky ones that got opportunities to go down. All the scouts would want to go and watch Hutchie Vale because the best players were playing there.
Yeah.
So in hindsight, if you maybe weren't in that platform or you weren't playing in that team, you maybe got less exposure. But for us, if Hutchie were playing on a Sunday somewhere in the town, I can guarantee you, and back in the days you'll probably remember when you're kids yourself, the scouts used to always wear the big trench coats, the kind of navy ones. And you could pick them out a mile away, and obviously the scouts would eventually speak to mum and dads. Some of them would obviously do it properly, some would go through the clubs, but that then gave you the opportunities to obviously get to go on trial, I suppose you would call it.
Trench coat and a pen and paper was always a giveaway, wasn't it? Sit with the pubs. So ultimately, like you says, that leads you to go down to Coventry. I think you've always says that homesick was a big factor of you obviously wanting to come back up the road. What advice would you give to younger players now that are going to experience that, have to experience that, where they might need to go away for football? What's the best way to deal with it for you?
I suppose it's an individual thing for that, and I could obviously flip that straight back at you when you obviously moved to Middlesbrough. It's like, I know you were a wee bit older than I was. I think it just becomes to like the support network that's around you really. Some people finish school and are quite happy to go travel the world. I was obviously a homeboy, so I found it really difficult coming through a kind of popular group of pals, never really having anyone push me about really, to then finding myself in an environment where I was the kind of young 15-year-old built outside a fag packet basically, and all the bigger, stronger lads would kind of, back in the day, would push you about a wee bit, and I found that mentally quite tough. Being away from mum and dad, being away from your home comforts really, and having to stand on your own 2 feet. I think like getting dropped off at the airport and like I still have to pick up my 15-year-old pants off the bathroom floor, do you know what I mean? And I'm walking through a terminal, do you know what I mean, getting to check myself in and sitting in the...
And once the doors close, that's you.
And that's you, and you're on your own. It's like, I can't tell you how vulnerable I felt without disclosing that to whether it be my sister who was dropping me off, mum and dad. You probably bubble it all up inside. So actual going down there, even though I like to think that I'd obviously done myself proud with getting that opportunity to sign a 4-year contract, I was obviously, somebody was liking me. But actually looking back, the football was the last of my worries really. Because I was thinking about the boys and the digs and getting home, missing flights. I cannot tell, I'm as honest as I possibly can be. I sat in that airport, last call from Mr. Kevin Thomson, and I just sit there.
Wow.
Last call from Mr. Kevin Thomson, I just sit there.
Do you know what's so funny about you saying that? I just got a flashback there. I don't think I've ever told this. Is like I went on trial to Charlton. I don't know if many people know this. Before Middlesbrough, so I was 11, went down to trial on trial at Charlton, and see like checking in myself, boarding the plane yourself, like he says, I fell asleep, right? And see when I woke up, I looked out the window and there was a French flag on the side of a plane, and I was like, I'm in Paris, like. And I remember asking people around about, where are we? Like, oh, the
not that good, get the same as PSG.
The flight's delayed, we're not London yet. And I remember just thinking, like, I've never travelled myself, like you're saying, because it's so difficult.
Did you feel that affected your playing when you were down there?
Aye, potentially, Robert. And maybe I never done myself a justice really, but obviously I must have done something good enough to obviously get that opportunity to sign, because they offered me an unbelievable deal, and I think that was, looking back, that was the hardest thing to give up, because they were so committed to me. They'd done everything they possibly could do. As a club, they were brilliant. It was just that environment in the digs. It was old-fashioned with the training centre. The Sky Blue Lodge was on the training centre. The first team players would train on the pitches outside. The academy boys, there was like a police academy college type thing, which was like a mile up the road. Sometimes you get a minibus, sometimes you just need to walk the main road. It was like kind of a busy roundabout on the verges of the grass, just walking up obviously. Pitches were brilliant, from what I remember. But it was the after training, the time in the lodge, the dinners, the
time yourself.
Aye, like the playing the PlayStation, the games at pool, the camaraderie within the boys. That's the wrong word, camaraderie. It was I was one of the ones that the brunt of the jokes and the brunt of the muck about was always coming my way, and I just found it difficult. So I didn't love football enough then in that environment to want to stay. I wanted to just get back up the road with my pals and play with my local grassroots team, which, without being disrespectful to my mates, I was way too advanced to be playing that type of level. But to actually just enjoy football game with my pals and be home and be back in with my mum and dad, obviously having home comforts of your sister, etc. They're obviously older sister to kind of look after you, even though I've looked after her for probably the last 20 years. But
so was that the kind of journey then? Was it during Coventry? Did you just leave completely, or was it Coventry directly to Hibs?
I went back to Grassroots. Robin, I played like in a team that were like my mates were just bottom end Grassroots really. Do you know what I mean? I basically went from being a young YTS professional, whatever you want to call it, a young scholarship down in England, to then back playing with just basic football players really. So it was.
Did you notice a difference in your confidence that again? They'll be back in an environment.
And obviously a lot of my other pals that maybe didn't play would come and watch these teams just because I'd be playing. And I used to get the bike down to the local leisure centre, so I never even used to get dropped off from mum or dad. Dad had probably gave up a wee bit because he probably felt I was a waste of talent. And I think it was like a kind of 3 or 4 month period. I eventually got the kick up the backside for Dad that told me that I had to go and earn my crust. If I wanted to be a lazy teenager lying in my bed all day, that I had to go and earn my crust. So a couple of my mates had worked in the butchers, so I'd say to them, listen, you couldn't speak to the bosses to see if I could get an opportunity to work. I managed to get that.
Pitch, didn't you?
Well, aye. And the Forsyths actually, who's the kind of local family that own the butchers down in Peebles, they were looking for apprentices at the time. I decided to be big and brave and become a butcher. I think it lasted 5 or 6 days, and in that call, as what you mentioned, the kind of Coventry straight to Hibs, there was that period of 4 or 5 months, including the butchers. Dad had a call off of Hibs to ask if I would be interested, go and have a couple of days training, no pressure, come and see what you think. And I went in and trained, and I still remember Donald Park saying to me after like 15-20 minutes of the first drill, and he was like, when do you want to sign? And I was like, well, already, like kind of stretching at the side of the pitch. And he's like, you're better than everything we've got. He says, you can come whenever you want, son. And I felt 10
do
foot
you know what's
tall,
amazing though? See, we taught, obviously we all coach younger boys now. I don't think anyone realises like the amount of times you hear about a professional now that had to take the 2 steps back to get their confidence back, to get their love and joy for the game back, to then flourish again. And obviously you're another example of doing that, because I never actually knew you went from Coventry back to Grassroots.
I think we're all in agreement. If you didn't enjoy it, whether you want to be a professional or whether you want to go for the bottom tier to the middle tier to the top tier, or top tier to maybe trying to get an opportunity at Pro Academy, if you're not enjoying it and you're not committed, and you're not in an environment where it's for you, then the likelihood is you're going to give your all.
Yeah.
And if you're not giving your all in this game, if you do want to be the 1% club and you want to try and make it a career, or you just want to try and get up the levels, the enjoyment has to be first and foremost.
And you'll not train as much as you probably need to, you'll not kick a ball as much as you have to.
And you know better than anyone, Andy, that I'm saying it to my boys now at 15, it's not just about what you do on the pitch, it's not just about Robbie's drill, it's not just about how you apply yourself every time you walk on the pitch, it's how you sleep, how you eat. You know what I mean? All these wee things, that might be fine for somebody that trains one night a week and plays for the local grassroots team on a Sunday, that's brilliant. But if they want to get better, there has to be a bigger commitment, and it's not just about a passing drill, it's not just about your shooting drill or your wee drill that you've got coming up or whatever, it's about, do you sleep properly, do you go to your bed, are you willing to sacrifice maybe your pals going up the park and staying late when you've got a game Sunday morning, do you know what I mean? All these wee things I think are really important. I had a really tough dad in the respect of brilliant upbringing, but if I was up the park I would just see this wee figure kind of coming over the hill and it'd be like, Hame. And maybe if I never had that, I would maybe have stayed for an extra hour. How would I have performed on a Sunday morning? Maybe not quite as good as I could have. So I was lucky to have that dad that was hard on me, always asking for more effort, but at the same time when I'm looking back, like if I never had that, he's been a huge role model for me.
You mentioned talk about huge role models, you mentioned Donald Park. How big was he for your development?
Honestly, Robbie, I cannot tell you, if you ever wanted to do like a kind of 2-year apprenticeship as a young football player when it comes to habits, standards, everything that we abide by, really, you couldn't ask for a better mentor. The discipline, the being on time, the attitude when you did walk on the pitch, the doing the jobs properly, whether it be cleaning the boots, whether it be scrubbing the floors, whether it be making sure that the kit wasn't lying about soaking wet on the floor, they were in the baskets, like all stuff that we do.
Help make you a better
person, 100%. So I would never do them a disservice in the kind of technical stuff that we do, but if you ask me, the one thing that I learned would be discipline, and I think that is a brilliant trait to have as a kind of young 16, 17-year-old. If you do want to make a way in the game, it gives you a great platform really to build off, if that makes sense.
So how quickly, you're obviously saying at Hibs, he's saying how good you are compared to maybe others round about you, how quickly was it then, the leap from then, debut to first team?
So obviously I never made my debut until like 18, 19, so probably a couple of years really as a youth team player. First year apprentice, you obviously you're trying to get in the team because you're playing against obviously second years are potentially still there. When I first joined Hibs, they obviously had the porter cabins outside the main stand because the main stand was just kind of going under reconstruction and getting built at that time. So it was quite unique because obviously Big Alex McLeish was the manager at the time. You had your Sozes, your Latapes, like the first team squad was huge. And obviously you could argue a wee bit lady luck for Marcel, Scotties, Whitties, Riordans, O'Connors, Fletch, that younger kind of generation that come through was obviously Bobby Williamson's era, which finances were starting to get a bit tighter, the big hitters were moving on, a lot of investment into the new stand, the training centre never existed at the time, so we probably count our lucky stars that sometimes timing in football, as you know, is better than anyone.
That's what I was going to ask there, like that kind of crop that came through, you mentioned yourself, Scott Brown, Gary O'Connor, Derek Whelan. Was that by design, I think, that they were doing kind of in the youth team, or was that a wee bit of luck involved as well?
I'm always a believer that you get to where you want to get to. It don't mean that you become a Rangers player, you become a Celtic player, a Hearts player, Hibs player, whatever it may be. I think if you've got talent and you're a good player and you've got the right mechanism as a young player and the attitude's spot on, all the wee 1% that surround your talent, I think you'll find your route. You might have a totally different profile for playing for one of the Edinburgh clubs or one of the Glasgow clubs, but I think it's hard to stop talent. But I know it's old cliche, talent that doesn't work hard doesn't get you very far, and all the boys, and the people that talk about Riordan and O'Connor maybe not having the best attitudes, they were brilliant attitudes. See, when they were on the pitch, they boys, you couldn't get them off the pitch. They were first on the pitch, doing mad overhead flicks and just volleying it in the net and like an infection to play football. They just love football. They maybe never liked the gym, they maybe never liked living properly through the summer or whatever, but when it comes to actually attitude within training, they were brilliant. But I do think, my dad says it all the time, that crop really had a bit of luck when Hibs changed finances, because you want to then competing with a Frank Soze if you're a centre half to get in the team. You want to compete maybe with a Russell Latape, so it definitely made it easier for us to get an opportunity. But at the same time, I think that crew.
You've got to take the opportunity, basically.
And it's the rest is history, I suppose. But you do need that you need that door open. And when we talk about youth development, when you talk about the big clubs in Scotland that gets battered for pillar to post on it for the opportunities and the young players that are playing in the domestic game at the moment, there isn't that many, which is frustrating. But if you didn't get that opportunity, nobody knows how good you are.
I don't think there's been a better crop of players coming through a youth academy in the group you came through with. I mean, you just look at the 7-8 names, you mentioned them, not only what they've done for Hibs, what obviously they've all went and done for their careers throughout. Did you know that was a special group for the get-go, in terms of personalities, attributes, characters?
Like a lot of young players come in and they get a wee flash in the pan, they get a wee bit of profile in because he's the young one, fans love a young player, but then they didn't back it up. I think it's really important, and that's what that crew were. Apart from me obviously hurting my knee, they got to 50 games quickly. They got to starting back pre-season with number 7 on their back, or number 10 on their back, or number 9. It wasn't like they got in the team and they were still number 33 and they were part of a squad, sitting on the bench, start a game,
put the game.
They hit the ground running and it never stopped really, which I think is the key to being a seasoned professional really. Because
sorry mate, we're taking this away from your career a wee bit, but what is actually stopping that in Scotland now? Because there's no one answer, but in terms of like, why do we not get that opportunity to give players more games? And I think it's the league's too. People say about the league being too wee, not enough youth games. There's probably more than one answer, but what's your kind of thoughts on it?
The youth thing is a real problem now, because I've got a boy that's obviously involved in it, and the fixture list is abysmal. Really,
it's crazy.
It's abysmal.
50 games a season or something?
It's abysmal. To answer the question, Rob, I would say that one, opportunity, you need it because you need the door open for you. 2, you need brave managers that are passionate about giving these kids. I know somebody would turn away straight away, well, they need to be good enough. Well, how do they prove they're good enough if you didn't get an opportunity? So I think because the nature of the game is so cutthroat, when you're a manager we only need to look at Russell. If you're throwing loads of kids in, but I think if you've got good ownership and you've got the right people in the right places, I think you can have a blueprint. And it annoys me a wee bit when you think of Nathan Patterson getting in 12, 13 games, getting sold for the best part of 12 to 15 million.
Yeah.
The money and market down there is ludicrous. So actually if you can develop talent up here, especially out with the Old Firm where there is less pressure, Hearts, Hibs, brilliant training facilities, Aberdeen, brilliant training facilities, albeit they just cancelled the 19s. Another frustration at a big club out in our country, a top 5 club, and they've not got an under 19s. It's so frustrating. So I don't know if the governing bodies, aligned with all the academy directors, should really sit round the table and say the only thing that's important in Scotland is our young players. Not just the young players at Hibs, not just the young players at Rangers, not just the young players at a fan. Well, if you're a Celtic fan, you hate Rangers, I get that. But surely collectively for our national game, everybody be on the. It doesn't mean that you could coach them different, play different styles, 100%. But I think somebody in the governing body that's a neutral, that's an independent, should have certain rules within our game, which I know is opening a can of worms, but to allow youth development to flourish, and I don't think we do.
So Tom, a lot of young players when they make their debut, it's normally coming off the bench. Yours were a wee bit different. It was starting the game against Dundee. So how did that come about? What was your feelings when you get told you were starting?
Obviously nervous, as you naturally would be. I never expected it. It was kind of travelled up to Dundee. Back then there used to only be 16 players that used to get a strip, so if you were 17th or 18th man.
I thought it was 2 when you first started it.
I'm not that old yet. But nah, it's up to Dundee. One of the first team boys had said, Tom, the gaffer wants to speak to you in reception, and I was like, I'm a bit too long in the tooth for this now. Didn't want to go round, but I donned round and said to the gaffer, obviously, they were sitting obviously at a different table for the boys, kind of in the foyer actually, they were having a cuppa, and he was like, get a seat. And he's like, listen, I'm going to give you your debut today. So I was like, nervous, a wee bit sweaty, excited. Obviously back to the table. I think the Nokias that we used to have back then were about this size. Onto my phone, playing Snake, and text my dad to say, listen, the manager just told me that I'm going to start, so can you leave me tickets? So obviously I'd said to, I think maybe Grant Brebner or some of the older players would obviously look after the tickets, so I'd said, can I get a couple of tickets? Is there any still going? So it was actually Grant Brebner who had failed a fitness test in the morning. I think he was not feeling well or whatever, so that gave him talking about opportunity. I felt like, without being big-headed, I was ready to play, but until you get that opportunity, and obviously I was more a central midfield player. I was a widey when I was a younger one, but like for kind of 16, 17, I was always in the middle of the pitch. And then the actual game transpired that when he named the team, and it was Bobby was quite old-fashioned, obviously, like on the kind of flip chart. I was on the left.
Right.
And I was like,
spewing.
Well, a wee bit, I'm like, left midfield, man. Obviously, I never said that.
You can't even date for the left.
But it's the same again, talking about a bit of luck. Craig Burley, didn't quote me on the time, but he got sent off after like 20 minutes or something.
Right.
Bad tackle on Tam McManus. So I'm thinking, this is brilliant. So actually, within a couple of minutes of the sending off, I'm saying a couple of minutes, it might have been 5 or 10 minutes, I vaguely remember Ian Murray playing in the middle of the pitch, and I was on his outside. And he wasn't giving me much service, Ned, to be fair, obviously more combative, running about, as you know. And Bobby swapped us, so I ended up in the middle of the pitch, and I genuinely mean this. If you could pick debuts, the hill at Dundee, as you obviously know, and I know because I played there.
You're good doing it.
I don't know, you know. I don't know.
Then it's quite good. Up it's not very
Aye.
good. But when you're down to 10 men, obviously a Hibs team that should, well, I'm not saying should, Dundee were a good team at the time and spent a lot of money themselves. I think I must have touched the ball like 100, 150 times.
Is that right?
So it was hard not to shine and enjoy it and get a bit more time on the ball, whereas I think the first 15-20 minutes before Craig Burley had been sent off, it was that good first touch, it was that wee simple pass, it was that like getting a wee bounce back off a throw in, and like I didn't have much involvement, but when the game ended up transpiring with him getting sent off, I remember Bobby saying to me on the Monday, he was like, I thought you were excellent. He says, but you're not getting another game where you get more touches than that.
Aye.
So I goes back to
But
that.
great for your confidence to have a first game like that.
Well, I ended up staying in the team, I think, until I hurt my knee against Partick Thistle, which was a real sucker punch for me. I think I'd played 26, 27 games in the bounce. And that was 1-1 with Dundee 92, 2-2 Easter Road. We got beat off Rangers 1-0 at Easter Road. Stevie Hughes scored late winner. And I can remember having an excellent game against Rangers, real blood and thunder game. And then we went to Tynecastle and got beat, I think, 2-0. So you're always, as a young player, thinking, oh, we just went to Tynecastle, he's going to change the team out. It's easy to leave the young one out. But to be fair to Bobby, once the young ones got in, we were in and we stayed.
You've mentioned Bobby Williamson. How was he for you? Like you say, your development, just giving you that opportunity to go and shine, learn, develop? Just
basic, Andy. Like, genuinely, like boxes, 5-0s, like crossing and finishing. Jerry McCabe and Clarkey were there at the time, these two assistants. But as a man manager, Bobby was brilliant for us because he knew that you start to get a bit of spotlight, you spend a bit of time up the town, you start to get a bit of profile, you're out a wee bit, people are starting to recognise you. He was, as long as training was done right, there was a real kind of trust and understanding where young players were at. And Bobby probably doesn't get enough credit for, one, giving the boys an opportunity, albeit you could argue the finances, like we've touched on, were maybe a forthcoming opportunity for him to open the door for the young boys to get in. But obviously if you weren't doing a good job, they would have signed a lot of players. Because eventually we end up the first team players that you get new contracts, you go further up the ladder. It wasn't like they had no money, do you know what I mean? But when the young boys got in, Gerard and Jack Connors, myself, Scotty's obviously Whitty, Flex soon to follow just after that in the kind of Mowbray era. The young boys they weren't getting pushed about by anyone, and we weren't moving for anyone. Once we got in, we had a taste of it, we grasped it, we wanted a bit more. But I have to say, for a young lad, he might not be the best tactical manager that I've worked under Bobby. The training might not been, but I still keep in touch with him now. He was absolutely brilliant for me personally. Real good guy, brilliant manager, but more of the kind of more, basically maybe the wrong word, just clarity. Real clarity, easy for us, really understanding, knew we were good players, wasn't that complicated in telling you what type of position you play. He basically took the shackles off us and let us run about.
So afterward Mowbray comes into Hibs, did you notice a bit of difference in his kind of coaching and managerial style compared to previous managers?
Tony was probably the first manager that he was the first manager that said to me that we need to stop you running about like a headless chicken, because obviously bundles energy the young players, whether it be myself, whether it be Scott, and he was a wee bit more structured in what we wanted to do. Even we daft things like receiving on the back foot, which is obviously something that we probably talk about for the kids, like body position proper, and I'm thinking, this manager's not really having me. Because obviously
because he's trying to coach you, you're trying to make him bad.
I'm a natural lefty, he was on my back a lot, that he always wanted me, and I felt really unnatural kind of receiving the ball on my right foot. But obviously, once I started to learn to receive off like a David Murphy and control here to play that I could see everything. But obviously, at the time I was probably not good enough, but I found my way out of trouble where I would take my first touch back here and I could still get it there. Because obviously I'd like to back my left peg, but I sometimes then had to swivel here or I'd go back to Murph, whereas like just that shape just opened the door for me to like switch play, to play forward, to find the other side of the pitch. And I'm thinking, because you got that testosterone as a young player, when the manager starts to like ask of you, you're a wee bit like, is he digging out here? Does he not like what I'm doing? Blah blah blah. But he was. I have to say, when we talk about being passionate about youth development, and obviously we're right involved in it. If I could pick one person to be a head of the academy, which obviously is too far gone. We've obviously been a manager, etc. See if he was come up here and governed like what we just mentioned earlier, and collectively had everybody on board and his ideas and his kind of philosophies. And I hate that word philosophy, but if it was his ideas, I have to say he would be unbelievable when it comes to youth development.
So listen, we're talking about all your Hibs careers, your debuts, your journey. You're in 22. You've mentioned Scott Brown. and it feels as if at that point, I mean, the full country's waiting to see what your decision is.
That's for sure.
The full country's waiting to see what your decision is, what Scott's decision is. How hard was that? Because it was like national-wide attention on where the two of you were going to go.
Listen, it was a brilliant position to be in, Andy, obviously, because you're humble, you're feeling good about yourself, these big clubs want you, you're speaking to managers, you're obviously established at Hibs. I was the captain at the time. Listen, I never enjoyed the kind of 4 or 5 weeks of kind of Willie Mackay, enjoying the kind of the circus of the media, and I certainly never enjoyed some of the stick that I got at Easter Road, obviously off the fans, which you could argue rightly so. They thought I took my eye off the ball. It was a difficult situation to be in, one that you grow up wanting to try and get to the top. You want to try and the top wasn't for me just playing for Hibs. It was a boyhood dream to play for the club, and I loved every minute of it. If Hibs had the resources and the opportunities that like moving to like an old firm would give you, then I would have happily stayed put. Naturally, if you get to Rangers or Celtic and there's the lure of the Premier League, or there's maybe a big club in Europe wants you, it's normal, do you know what I mean? Like to get brought up. I don't think anyone would be speaking out of turn that if you started at Dundee, you might have aspirations of playing for Hibs or Hearts, you then might have aspirations of playing for the old firm, whatever it may be. So I found the 5 or 6 weeks difficult, but at the same time when I look back to be a young lad for Peebles going through the journey that we've just spoke about, grassroots kid, to go to Coventry, to give it up, to be in the butchers, to play with my pals again, to then going on and captain the club that I grew up supporting, that all my pals support, my family, to then get an opportunity to drive through to Glasgow to do a medical to sign for Rangers was pretty special.
So you signed for Rangers, you just said it's probably the best crop of youngsters that came through that Hibs team. Was it another step again? Did you have to go in and again establish yourself, show you belonged there, or was it quite an easy transition for you?
I would never be disrespectful to the lads, but obviously you mentioned the players and you're thinking like some of them were the best crop, and I humbly agree that some of the boys, what they went on and achieved, just Scotties, I think it's there for everybody to see what they went on and achieved, obviously at Celtic, brilliant player, great career. So actually when I first signed for Rangers, I never went in the changing room or on the training pitch and thought, oh, these players are too good for me.
Overall,
but the natural thing is, your dad asked you what was it like to train with Barry, what was the standard like, but like guys like Ian Murray were there, Gavin Ray when I first joined, they're really good players, but players that I'd either played against or played with. Then you get obviously young players that had been in the 21 squad, where you had like your Stevie Smiths, your Burkies, your Charlie Adams, Hutts, Griggsy, who obviously I knew personally. So I never went into the changing room and
felt like you were
felt
struggling.
I was certainly backed myself, but obviously the team changed, the group got better and better because Walter kept on recruiting, but obviously your Boydies, your Maisie was soon to follow, so it was what he obviously followed me as well only 6 months down the line, so a lot of familiarities really, which I think made it an easier settling in period. And also I heard you speaking just on open goal just the other day, you almost get a wee element of grace, which is, we know that's not the case, but I was a wee bit like that, goes back to that word lucky. Out the Scottish Cup, Durrant had been caretaker manager, beat off Dunfermline.
Dunfermline 1-0, was it 1-0?
3-2.
Out the League Cup.
Aye, well done 3-0.
I'm sure I was at that game.
We got beat off Osasuna.
I think Rodriguez get taken off first half, I think.
He was
at that game.
Aye, potentially. It was at Dunfermline, wasn't it?
I'm pretty sure it was 3-2.
But anyway, obviously.
Durrant, 1 game, 1 loss.
I wouldn't say that to him. And then you've got, I think, 18, 19, 20 points behind Celtic. Do you know what I mean? So from that first period of January, when you think you like having an opportunity to settle in, which you didn't normally get at Rangers, having somebody with the stature of Walter, knowing that it was going to take time, same again, a bit like you could argue this current era. Paul Le Guen was obviously one that the fans were desperate to get rid of, obviously got sacked, there was a lot of animosity with him and Barry, another key figure obviously at the club. So looking back, I was lucky probably to join at the time I did, because it gave me that opportunity to find my feet, to kind of get used to the surroundings, the expectation, the demand, and it was hard. Luckily you grow on people, a lot of people I would imagine probably thought I was just alright when I first joined, but you get that settling in period, which you didn't get obviously, but luckily enough I think I had maybe a wee taster of that.
What was the key differences in terms of the environment?
The biggest thing for me, Rob, was that you walk in reception and you pass Sandy Jardine, and then you walk along the corridor and you pass John Gregg, and then you get into the kit room and you
to just hit you right away there.
You pass Jimmy Bell, the kind of unofficial gaffer, and then you've got Walter that you're scared to walk past his office, and you've got Coisties, your Durantes, like it was littered with standards, and it was like I got brought up to look around and listen. And I wanted to be successful, so whatever bit of information or whatever bit of standard was there for me to try and soak it up, then I soaked it up. I wanted to learn, I wanted to, if Barry was eating 5 eggs in the morning, I was eating 6. It was one of the environments, and I think you would be naive not to. Listen, there's loads of players that didn't. Listen, if Barry told me to jump off a cliff, I wouldn't. but as a young player, you got Davy Weir, do you know what I mean? The experience that he had, the career that he had, do you know what I mean? So I'm like watching him always first thing in the morning, always on the bike, like spinning his legs. I'm like, I'm only 21, I didn't need that.
Yeah.
But so you start to learn, don't you? You see people in the gym, like at Hibs, we never had the resources and the facility that would allow us to go in the gym and all these type of things. So, you know, the eating was a big thing for me, watching boys the way they used to eat, like salads and all these type of things. I'm thinking, we used to go for a burger and chips. Game of pool, do you know what I mean? So it was, the cultural thing was probably different with just the resources. Same pre-match stuff, massages, like not that we didn't have a masseur at Hibs, but we were just desperate to go and play pool or golf. Do you know what I mean? So you have to embroil yourself in what it is to be these elite players, and that was one of the things that I would say I had to learn quickly. If I wanted to be successful, and no better people to kind of learn off that had been there and seen it and done it, and people like Barry.
So Tomo, you going to then play Champions League football, ultimately going to play a European final as well. Was that another mentality shift to bring yourself up to playing at that elite level of European football?
It's just what obviously you
signed up to do, basically.
Aye, and it's obviously like us all, you sit Tuesday, Wednesday nights watching Champions League, the music, the camera kind of going across the players' faces, and you have that dreamy hope for that would be you one day. And I still remember our first Champions League game against Stuttgart at Ibrox, the atmosphere, the bonus. Is
that 2-1?
Aye, good. 2-1. Aye,
that's what younger players have got to look forward to.
Charlie Adams cutting in on his right foot. So, still remember Coisty phoning me on the way back Whitty obviously used to stay over, phoning me on the way back just to say, listen, I thought you were magnificent, blah blah. I think I got a 3 or 4 in the paper the next game day as well. But to win in the Champions League.
Any names who give you that?
I think it was Andy Devlin that gave me out his depth. I've just had the assistant manager on the phone tell me how brilliant I was the night after it, and that's one thing I learned quickly, to have kind of rhino skin and no get too enamoured about what people say, and you just have to concentrate on yourself, really have thick skin, have a mentality that you respect it, but it cannot really affect you.
Is that so important, Tom? When you get to that level, just being able to block out that noise?
I think when I first signed, when the papers used to lie up at lunch, people would be like, I didn't read them, and I'm like, used to always be quite sunshine and roses, obviously as a Hibs player, and hopefully being one of the good players as such. You carry the can a wee bit when you're the captain, but probably never had too much stick apart from that last wee stint, obviously, just before I moved to Rangers. But no, listen, playing in Europe, playing in Champions League, getting to play against these best players, European nights, as everybody knows, are extra special at Ibrox. To go 2008 to start against Red Star Belgrade, to go over there, to draw 0-0, to get the group of death, Lyon, Stuttgart, and obviously Barcelona at the time. I think that Barcelona team was probably when Yankee Man City and Yankee Pep's brilliant Barcelona, because that was Rijkaard at the time.
It was Ronaldinho, Henry.
But when you think of the players, they would still probably in the last 30-40 years, they would be one of the kind of iconic teams.
You done really well, 0-0 and then 1-0.
Messi wasn't quite happy about it, was he?
Anti-football.
If Messi says that you need to part the bus, I think every team in World Football parks the bus against Messi, so it's we'll take that with a pinch of salt. But to be able to be on the pitch and tell your lads that you played Champions League, you're involved in these type of occasions, it's pretty special.
What's the kind of mentality shift though for yourself, going from playing maybe a Kilmarnock at home to a midweek game against a Barcelona? Like, is it a total different, is it an almost if we've got nothing to lose, or is it I belong in this pitch and I'm going to compete toe to toe?
Nah, I think it's hard when you go through, like domestically you're expected to win every game, but listen, you're expected to win every game even whether you play Barcelona at Ibrox, even though you're playing against Messi. Like, the Rangers fans still expect you to win, which is mad. You play in pre-season games for Rangers, they expect you to win. It's just the way it is, whereas at other clubs, pre-season might be about getting miles in the legs, and that is the case at Rangers, but the result's still really important. Whereas some other clubs, the results might not quite be as magnitude if you maybe come on the wrong end there, a result of a team that you're expected to beat.
Do you think you thrived on that, Tom? It demands to win, demands to train properly, intensity.
I loved it, mate. It becomes part of you, doesn't it? And I think I was thinking about it actually on the way through. I think you either become addicted to it in a good way, because it becomes part of your makeup and you enjoy that pressure, you enjoy that profiling, you enjoy representing the club, what comes along with it, the scrutiny, or you resent it a wee bit. And I would like to think I was one of the players that thrived on it. I loved that pressure, that prestige.
So listen, we've got to talk about him. Obviously one of the greats of Scotland, one of the best managers in Britain's history. Walter Smith, try and give us a wee bit of insight. I mean, what he was like, how good he was for you and
just
the rest of the
just
boys.
the best, mate. Just talking about like being humble and being classy and being an unbelievable manager. Really, just I think his passing just shows you how high regard he was held by everybody in the country. I know he was a national manager, but normally when you're a great at a club like Rangers, the other side of the city didn't particularly like you. But when I think he, being the national manager and having Coisty, Tommy Burns, rest his soul as well, he was just a meticulous planner, really. I think it was the same with his recruitment. Looking back, when he signed all his young players, the British spine, getting the fans on board, getting everybody pulling in the right direction. You couldn't even get someone that, for all the decisions you need to make as a Rangers manager, whether it be recruitment, staffing, just coming up against obviously every competitor that wants to beat you. He was meticulous.
Yeah.
He never got many wrong, and that's why he's held in the regard that he's held. He's just a brilliant human being, a brilliant mentor, and somebody that if you could be anywhere near the kind of gentleman and the humility that he had as an individual, you'd be doing it right.
He had an aura like no other. I mean, if he's walking in your room, you're changing room, you're dressing room, whatever it is, it's just silent.
But just so humble, Andy. Yeah, like for me, I still think he lying in the physio room when I hurt my knee, and obviously our kind of morning would be you'd get your breakfast, people would be obviously massage, there'd be a bit mucking about going on, darts, etc. But the boys that trained used to have to be on the bikes at 10:15 till 10:30. Then you got your boots on, and obviously you went out with sports science and kind of training kind of started. He'd always with his flip flops on that were like for such a great. I don't even think
hanging off.
Hanging off. With Jimmy will obviously no thank me for this. He'll be turning his grave. But the rugby shirts, the old-fashioned rugby shirts, like one collar would be up, the other one would be folded in. It looked like it hadn't even been washed or ironed. And he just
socks tucked into the joggies, joggies tucked into the socks.
And he would always, because obviously the physio room, as you know, is kind of the glass. And Stuart Colley was the physio at the time, who was obviously managing my knee. And he would always, like, whether you won, whether things were going good, whether things were going bad, no matter what he had ongoing in his life, he would always come in and see you. And it was amazing that, like, at 23, I still probably, I think when I got to 25, 26 or 26, 27, and maybe never needed a manager to make me feel good.
Yeah.
But when I hurt my knee at Rangers, I still felt as though I still needed that mentorship thing and still needed the relationship of it, but still needed his human touch. And I never had to ask for it once. It was there, it was always done. And then the flip of that is when you needed a kick up the backside when you were playing, whether it was approaching an important part of games, the kick used to come, and looking back you'd be like, things were alright, but alright wasn't good enough. And he just knew how to get that wee extra inch off of every player, whether you're playing in the team, not playing in the team. You'll not find many people that would have a bad word to say about Walter.
Yeah, amazing, mate. KT Academy, Kevin Thomson's Academy.
Friends of Plenty Pro.
Friends of Plenty Pro, you're obviously a great help to us getting started as well. So tell us how that came about. What made you, I know you've got a big passion for youth development in Scotland. Was it quite an easy decision that you wanted to do something like that, get your own journey with an academy?
Aye, obviously I always had, I used to, probably yourself used to say it to me, like right through my whole career I used to always have teammates saying, oh Tom, I can't wait till you're a gaffer. Tom, I can't wait till you're the manager. And I was like, just as a young player, even sitting signing like 5-year deals with Mr. Petrie, same again, rest his soul, obviously just recently passed away, I'd be like, I wanted to be the manager one day, even though I was just starting my career really. So I've always been a player that's thought football, just the way my brain ticks. But I've also done that journey as a young player. I've had the difficult moments in Coventry, so I feel as though I'm quite a good place to kind of give that advice. I've obviously managed to go all the way through being a youth team player, breaking into the first team to moving to becoming an international player. So, and all that was a long, hard slog and a lot of commitment and a lot of time, as we kind of spoke about in the kind of earlier part of the journey. So I feel as though having 2 kids, when they started at Grassroots, the ego part in you kind of goes and watches mums and dads obviously taking, which is amazing because Grassroots wouldn't exist without this commitment for these people that are helping. And I used to just always have a wee notion in my head that like I'd like to give this a wee try and kind of have my own academy and maybe bring in some of my own beliefs and how I kind of got brought up in the streets and with a ball at my football, with a football at my feet, been up the golf course, been down the park, been down the high street, kicking it off the wall, keepy uppies in the back garden, and then having 2 kids that were wanting to follow in Dad's footsteps really. So that was the kind of driver. And then obviously you retire, that'll come to you one day, Andy, when you get as old as me.
Couple of weeks. What you say?
After this challenge, if I lose.
You come to that crossroads where you've always had a job, you've always had a boss, really, an employer, and then like you think, oh, like I've done all right, I'll maybe retire, I'll play golf every day. But when you're a grafter, you're a grafter. So I was a wee bit
Just
like,
in you.
I'm still the same now. I'm on the pitch all the time, the same as you guys, trying to make a difference. We do different programs. It's no as rosy as it is now when people look for an outside in to what it was when I first started with a baggy balls in the pea and rain on a grass pitch that there was more mud on the pitch than there was grass. It's just, I was humble enough to start, and I've had loads of people, obviously, whether it be yourselves, your Nachos, Big Gaz O'Connor, Deeks, lots of people have asked me for advice over the years, and I've said to the same as I said to you, is like, if you're passionate about it, give it a go and just commit to it and try and help the kids, because there's plenty of kids there that have the same dream that we had, and as long as we're all kind of striving in the same direction, which I'm sure we are, to try and help the kids get better, which is why we're all here, isn't it?
You mentioned the fact that you've got 2 kids currently playing. So what kind of dad are you on the side of the pitch?
I'm a hard dad, but I didn't say nothing, Robbie. I didn't say I'm a hard dad when it comes to effort. The same as my dad was with me. I've got no problem whatsoever if my boys want to stop tomorrow. I've got no problem at all if both of them pass the ball at the pitch or it goes under their foot. Or it doesn't mean that I'm not the same as any other parent that you get frustrated because everybody wants to see their kids do well.
Do as best they can.
Of course they do. But an effort and an application is non-negotiable for me. And I just said it to my oldest one now when I took him a day release on Wednesday, you're leaving the house at the back of 8 to drop him off because he gets the day off school to go in with full-time boys, and you're sitting in rush hour traffic coming home and it's taking you an hour and 45 minutes to drop him off and get home. And my mum would give me a clip round the lug and say, listen, that's what I done for you. But as long as their effort is there, as long as if they've got games, touching on it earlier, they go to bed properly, they try and eat properly, and they're committed, I will give them all the advice I can possibly give them. But if they didn't want to do it, no problem. But as a dad, you could ask anyone, I never say one word when they're training, I never say one word when there's a game on. I predominantly stand myself. I don't know if that's because people didn't like me. I get a chat with obviously different parents, but I just want to stand, watch training, watch my boys.
So Tom, in your opinion, what is the biggest challenge that younger players now face in making it to that next level?
I just think opportunity, like we've touched on, Andy. So you need a door to be opened, you need to be good enough, you need to, when you get the wee opportunities, whether it be playing in youth team games, whether you get that contract and that's your first opportunity, whether you get opportunities to go and train with the first team, unfortunately you need to grasp these. Too many let the opportunities go by. I don't think people value the significance of maybe getting a Tuesday morning with the bomb squad or a Monday morning with the bomb squad and really being prepared for it and then actually catching the eye. I say it all the time when I used to work at Ibrox, when I was at the training centre, it's not about blending in, it's about sticking out. I say it to my boys all the time, like, people are not looking for the kids that are at the bottom of the group, people are not looking for the kids that blend in and then catch the eye. You have to, whatever type of player you are, you have to catch the eye. And I would say that if you are a young professional and you've got a scholarship stroke YTS and you're at Motherwell or you're at Hibs or you're at Rangers or Celtic, when you get the wee opportunities, whether it be Friday night games, you never know who's watching. And I think too many, the old kind of chestnut of standing in the boozer next to somebody with 10 pints of Guinness and I'm saying, oh, I was a good player one day, son.
It's got to be me.
And we've heard it on. Listen, my dad was a real good player, but he never played at the level that I played at, do you know what I mean? But he was a good player when he was younger, so I looked up to him, but I wanted to be better than him because that's how I got brought up. He was pushing me to try and be the best player. So I think too many players, and I've seen it so often. So one thing we never speak about in Scotland is how many people fail. We're always happy to see a Lennon Mother, which is brilliant, but what about the rest that fail? When are we looking at ourselves in the mirror to say, can we do better for these kids? Can we give them better opportunities? Can the system be better? And that's one thing a lot of people involved in football didn't like that.
Is there a parachute for them? Is there something for them to fall back on?
Aye. I would like it to be the narrative where it's harder to fail than it is easier to fail, if that makes sense. And I think if there's better opportunities and there's people see that pathway and it's more aligned, I think people would be more driven to try and stay on the right path.
Tomo, absolute pleasure, mate. Thanks for coming down.
Top man, mate. Thank you.
Lads, a wee skill challenge. I know how ultra competitive you are, so something that I maybe done when I was a player. We're going to have a wee one-touch one, a receiving pass, and then a wee reverse. So we will go for it. Point scoring: 1 point, 2 points, and 3 points.
Yeah, okay.
Nice.
How many rounds?
3 rounds, 3 balls. Job done. My money's on Robbie.
Yes.
That's mine.
You ready?
Yep.
Yes! Yes! Hey, you can't miss this one! Oh my God! Penalty spot through the corner! Yeah! Come on!
I maybe should have brought my boots.
I tell you what, I needed that.
I done well in the practice.
I needed it. Ready when you are.
Oh! Yeah, maybe that.
Touch penalty. Tester.
Oh!
They adjusted feet.
Yep.
Oh my God! You have to get this. Oh. No, if you
Nah,
miss
he's
this,
got-
you're done.
Nice.
No!
3-pointer.
This is bad. I'm going to be a meme.
Penalty spot.
Oh, yes! Might need this actually.
Yes, come on!
Nice. You ready?
Oh, that's.
Can't be any better here.
Wow.
I am.
Whoa!
Penalty spot.
I'm loving it.
Nice.
Finish, great finish.
Come on then.
Wow. Yeah.
Touch.
Oh, what's up with that goal? You went.
Still
Right
doesn't
foot,
matter.
Tomo, right foot.
Righty.
I get 6.
8, 9. But I tell you what, Tomo, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate.
Don't know about Israel, but thanks very much.
Top man, cheers, Tomo.